Welcome to Making Capitalism Sustainable on True Chat. Reasoned solutions to economic and educational issues facing the nation. From the CED studios in Washington, D.C., here's your host.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm Mike Petro, Executive Vice President at the Committee for Economic Development. In 2017, CED launched the Advancing Women in Corporate Leadership initiative, which seeks to encourage corporations to increase female representation in leadership positions. Now, as part of this effort, CED is conducting a series of podcasts that focus on the experiences of women in leadership roles and the practical steps both women and companies can take to advance women in corporate leadership. Now, today I'm here with Nicole Blythe, National Managing Partner of People Experience at Grant Thornton, and to discuss Grant Thornton's recent report entitled Women in Business. We'll discuss how Grant Thornton is helping to increase gender diversity from within the company. Hi, Nicole. It is great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm happy to be here and glad to be a partner with the Committee for Economic Development.
Thank you so much. So let's walk through some of the results here. I mean, Grant Thornton's new report reveals a 12% increase with the number of American companies that have women in senior management positions. But the total number of women in senior management in the whole U.S. has decreased by 2% in 2017. Now, what does that 2% decrease indicate to you?
You know, I think the concerning part about that is it suggests that businesses may be very focused on ticking the diversity box to avoid an all-male leadership team rather than really thinking about how to create an inclusive culture that leads to a truly, genuinely diverse senior management team. Hugely positive that women are in senior roles at more businesses, but it's disappointing when they're spread so thinly. And this means that many businesses may not be really realizing the gains from the benefits of that. And I think checking the box versus meaningful inclusion really leads to women feeling like their voice may not be heard and appreciated. I think you can give a woman a seat at the table, but if she doesn't feel that that seat has the same value as everyone else's, or that her voice isn't heard and appreciated, she's not going to sit at the table for very long. And we saw this trend also globally. There was a 9% decrease in companies that did not have women in senior management. And globally, the total number of women in senior management went down by 1%.
Right. And this is very interesting, Nicole, because we're hearing that from some of our women executives as well, who've gone through the leadership track at corporations. So the report that you have it also finds that the proportion of senior roles held by women in the U.S. decreased to 21%, up only 1% since the start of this research 14 years ago. Why is the progress in this area so slow?
Yeah, it sort of feels like two steps forward and one step back. The GT report found that only 55% of the companies in the U.S. Intentionally introduce gender equality policies and practices. The biggest drivers of those types of policies are really to live up to an organization's values and to attract and keep employees. And those are important reasons to drive gender equality. But until corporate leaders really fully understand and embrace the impact of gender equality, I just don't think we're going to see much movement of the women in senior leadership positions. I thought it was interesting if you looked at the survey participant results, that 39% of the survey participants in the U.S. believe that gender diversity in the senior management of their company is not important for the future success of their company. And I just have to strongly disagree with that. Lots of research to suggest that that's just not the case.
Wow, 39%. That is startling. I mean, the disparities between what businesses aim to do in terms of gender equality and diversity and what they have to put into action are indicated in this report. I mean, what can business leaders do then to reduce these disparities?
Yeah, I really think there's three key areas of recommendation to really close this gap. And they fall into three categories of leadership, policy, and culture. If the top leadership of the organization hasn't made diversity and inclusion a core value or core priority, it will not be successful. From the policy perspective, you really have to avoid tokenism or checking the box, as I mentioned earlier. Build policies in to reduce what I call the mini-me recruitment and promotion. So not recruiting and promoting people that just look or think like you do. And there's really important to introduce sponsorship into the equation. And I think the last piece of this is culture, and it's only last because I listed it last, but I think it's really the foundation for organizations, that a culture has to really allow individuals to share their story, to bring their whole selves to work, and really encourage everyone around them to have active dialogue and, frankly, uncomfortable conversations to help us really get to understand each other's challenges. And the diversity of thought and the diversity that we each bring to those situations. One of the things at Grant Thornton that we've done is actively engaged our leadership in the diversity and inclusion efforts. And that's really an extension of our culture at Grant Thornton. And we actually have all members of our senior leadership team are aligned individually to one of our business resource groups as advocates. And in many cases, they're allies to those groups. They don't personally identify with that group, but they're there to learn and support and to be a voice from a senior leadership perspective.
So, Nicole, because we use this term a lot, the importance of mentoring. So are you really talking about executives mentoring? I mean, I see, at the first question that we talked about, you have women in these leadership roles, but they feel like, they're just sort of there to occupy a seat. And the idea that mentoring, especially male senior executives mentoring the women, is there any of that in the research that you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the piece of that that's important, you mentioned mentoring, and it's absolutely an important part of the equation. But I would go farther and say that sponsorship really is the key. And the difference there is mentoring, as we all know, the definition of that is someone to guide you from a career standpoint and a personal standpoint, and to offer you that advice and that outlet for having those discussions. A sponsor is someone who will advocate for you, will basically, as I like to say, go to the mat for you. And stand up for you and the skills that you have and what you bring to the table. And I think the key to success is mentorship's absolutely essential, but the key to success is that sponsorship.
I like that. It's funny. I think we're going to start using that term here more at CED, Nicole, the sponsorship, because it seems like a much more proactive approach. We're going to get back to a couple of questions in a second, but I just wanted to remind our audience that in addition to making capitalism sustainable, True Chat has a selection of shows on sports, politics, entertainment, business, lifestyle, and more. So be sure to head over to truechat.org or tune in by downloading the True Chat mobile app. That's True Chat, one word. The Committee for Economic Development is proud to be a partner of True Chat, whose mission is to be the mortal enemy of speculation, innuendo, and stagnation. We will champion informed opinions and fresh ideas. True Chat will prove that media can be trusted, relied on, and responsible. We won't join the media elite because we're setting a new standard on higher standard, the True Chat standard. If you have any questions or any ethical concerns with today's episode, please email ethics@truechat.org. Again, that's ethics@truechat, one word, .org. Now, we're here with Nicole Blythe from Grant Thornton. Nicole, where do compensation and promotion play a part when it comes to diversity and inclusion practices?
Well, the GT study found that in the U.S., 91% of companies have policies and practices for equal pay for men and women performing the same roles. This is actually 10% higher than the global findings, which is really positive. The thing that's difficult here is, according to the American Association of University Women, in 2016, women in the U.S. were paid 80% of what men were paid, which was a pay gap of 20%. And it also varied greatly by state. New York had a pay gap of 11%. Compared to Louisiana with a 30% pay gap. And we know that for everyone to really feel engaged and included, they need to feel and know that they're being treated fairly and that their contributions are respected and valued in the same way. And that really applies to all aspects of the talent life cycle, be it hiring, promotion, compensation, what learning opportunities they're provided, the types of clients that they're assigned to. And I really think it's important for companies to ensure that they are evaluating this at every stage of that employee life cycle and through every process to make sure that the pay, the hiring, the promotion, all of those opportunities are fair. As the managing partner of People Experience, I'm the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Grant Thornton, and I'm actively involved in our diversity and inclusion practices across all of our employee life cycle, all the way up to partner compensation reviews and leadership reviews. So we ensure that it goes all the way up the chain.
Wow, that's really terrific. So let's talk a little bit about Grant Thornton's internal policies here. I mean, Grant Thornton was recently named one of the 2018 National Association for Female Executives top companies for executive women. So how is Grant Thornton making diversity and inclusion a priority here?
Yeah, I am very pleased that we were once again named to those top companies for executive women. And I have been with Grant Thornton for 14 of my 23 years of my career, and have certainly seen a priority placed on diversity and inclusion from my whole tenure here at the firm. We really encourage our people to bring their whole selves to work. And I know a lot of companies will say that or use that tagline, but it truly is part of who we are, so that we can help people thrive personally and professionally, so all perspectives are heard. And we value not only visible, but what I call invisible diversity, so that you may have two people sitting in a room that have similar backgrounds or both of the same race or similar age, but they still bring very different perspectives to the table that need to be valued and heard. And that's another aspect that we really focus on. I mean, for us, inclusion is really a way of life. It's part of our culture. It's part of our values and our behaviors. And it's how we attract talent. Our culture to us is a really strong differentiator with our people and in the marketplace. And it's based solely on our core values, which are collaboration, leadership, excellence, agility, respect, and responsibility. And when we think about diversity and inclusion, we specifically focus on that value of respect. And the behavior that we associate with that is to make what's important to other people important to us. And I think that really encourages us to get to know each other better, to understand the challenges, and to really help emphasize it. We also have many policies that are focused on particular aspects of diversity and inclusion. And our Women at Grant Thornton Business Resource Group, for example, the Working Mother Committee recently brought a proposal to us that they wanted us to be able to offer a benefit to give breast milk shipping for our women who are traveling for work. So we immediately rolled out that benefit. So all of those things that we can do to help people see the importance that we place on it and that we recognize some of those challenges.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think you should be proud of the accomplishments of Grant Thornton here. I've got one last question for you, though. What are the first steps, do you think, that companies that don't have any diversity and inclusion practices should take to start building a solid foundation for the future?
Yeah, I think it absolutely starts at the top of the organization and establishing the tone from the top, and a belief from the top leadership of the impact that diverse and inclusive workforce really can have. You really have to be able to start with those leaders understanding and frankly being able to tell their story of what really makes them passionate about diversity and inclusion, and not just the business aspects and the business performance aspects, but what it means to them personally. Another key thing I think is first really looking at the current state of the organization. What are the strengths and opportunities that will help foster the creation of a D&I strategy that's action-oriented and really addresses the challenges? How to align that with the company's strategy is also really important. And I think the third thing is to not be afraid to have honest conversations. One of the things that we say here at the firm is we do need to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And an example is that our African American and Allies Business Resource Group was really inspired by a TED Talk they saw by a woman named Melody Hobson, and it was called Colorblind or Color Brave. And they used that to implement our own version of color brave conversations that happen throughout our firm in the workplace to encourage people to talk about their race or ethnicity or other things that make them diverse, and to not be uncomfortable to share their perspectives about how that makes them feel or how that changes their perspective in the workplace.
Well, as always, we cannot thank you enough for tuning in to True Chat. But did you know that you can join the conversation on our app or website, truechat.org? If you listen and already listen to the podcasts on iTunes and Stitcher or some other platform, you can also subscribe to our shows there. So thank you, Nicole Blythe, for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Mike, for having me. This has been a real pleasure.
And for making capitalism sustainable on True Chat in Washington, D.C., I'm Mike Petro with the Committee for Economic Development. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Making Capitalism Sustainable.
Looking for responsible media? Listen on demand to politics, sports, and more with the True Chat app or at truechat.org. Beyond the horizon, there is trustworthy media at True Chat.